Now, the Sony a7 IV, it's been all over the internet for the last year. We've heard tons of rumors about it, but really there's been very little substance. We were hoping to get the a7 IV last year, but we ended up with the a7S III, a camera we hadn't seen updated in about 5 years. Well, lately there's been an awful lot of news coming out from Digital Camera World, Camera Labs, and many, many others, but they're all pointing to the same source, and that's Sony Alpha Rumors. So let me show you what we have here as an update from Sony Alpha Rumors. They're saying that we're looking at, and this is an update based on August the 29th, it is now going to be a 33 megapixel sensor. Again, these are rumors. We don't know if this is going to pan out, but the really big thing here, 7K oversampled 4K. Now we're going to get 5.5 stops of IBIS, and it's supposed to be coming in October. And we're going to talk about the lenses very shortly here. But 7K, that is very similar to what we get the R5. So the R5 does produce 8K, and I'm not going to discount 8K, because 8K, I'll tell you, it produces great results. And until you tried it out, you don't realize how powerful that is. But next to that, the R5 has produced better video than the a7S III because it has more detailed video when it takes that full sensor readout. 8K oversampled 4K, and I got to tell you, it is everything you would expect it to be. And the videos that I put out on this channel, you have no idea. If you actually saw the actual content shot in all I, 30 frames per second, 4K HQ, it's stunning. It's so much better than what you see on YouTube. So I'm so excited to see that the a7 IV is coming out with 7K oversampled 4K. Now, before we get to the lenses, I want to open up to the panel. And I know this is video, and I should go to James first, but I want to go to Brian. Brian, I was in your store a couple of years ago. I was looking at the a7 III, and I thought, oh, they're going to refresh this soon. I didn't think it was going to take as long as it did to refresh it. If these rumored specs are to be believed, what do you think of the a7 IV?
I think it's going to be killer. Anything Sony comes out with these days is hot. There's just no doubt about it. They put the amazing sensors in there. They've got great technology in their processors. They do everything right. They've got good lenses. The simple answer is it's going to sell. The more honest answer is who knows when we'll see them.
Yeah.
With shortages, and somebody mentioned, is it higher cost being charged down to sensor shortage? Nick Ken says there's so many reasons why costs are going up, from labor in warehouses not being able to work close enough, less people, different hours, things not being shipped properly. And there's so many reasons due to the COVID crisis that everything has gone up.
Yeah.
You can't pin it down to just this. Now, chips, we all know chips are, forget about it. Nobody has chips. Godox receivers, we can't even get. They're discontinued because they can't build them. They have no chips. It's just one example of another issue of not getting stock. And with Sony, lately we've been very lucky. We're getting stuff in, which is great to see. But when things are released new, we don't see them right away. Like, sure, they're announced. We can take down payments. We can get the orders in. But when they're actually out, who knows? And so we can get excited when they announce it. And if they give an actual embargo date, that's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be in people's hands right at that point everywhere, at least in Canada. Probably different in Japan and the States and stuff like that. But I don't work there, so I don't know.
No, I know. I think that, it's very likely they'll come out and do some sort of announcement in October, and I think it's very likely that they can still have them available for sale in November. But, is it going to be a box of 5 sent to a couple of stores throughout the country? We'll just have to wait and see. One of the things I like, Brian, about doing rumors is it's fun. It really is fun. And sometimes I get some viewers who'll say, because I got the DJI one wrong. It wasn't the Mavic Pro 3. It ended up being the Osmo 5, and all the rumors were pointing towards that. And rumors aren't always correct, but rumors to me are for dreamers, people who like to imagine what can be and what their next camera is going to be. But James, as a video person, what do you think if this camera does deliver 7K oversample 4K?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it QUHD? Because 33 megapixels is the minimum for that 16 by 9 8K, if I remember correctly.
Well, it does depend on the aspect ratio of the sensor, but most sensors follow that typical 35 millimeter aspect ratio. Very few provided, a film aspect ratio.
Yeah. No. So yeah. So that. So it'll probably be 3.2. So yeah, it'll be slightly less than the QUHD. I think it's a solid. I think it's a solid camera. It's kind of what I thought when the A7S III was announced. I said, and actually, I wonder if Gaston is still in chat because me and him talk all the time, off screen, just everybody. And I wonder if he's keeping his eye out on this camera as well because I know, he's into Sony. He's got a lot of Sony. He has the A7S III. He loves it. But I just go back to what I was thinking about when the A7S III was announced. I said, what happens when the A7 IV comes and it produces a more detailed, better video than the A7S III? I still think the A7S III was going to be a better low light, but the way filmmaking is moving now, a lot more people can lights and professional lighting is getting a lot more compact. It's getting a lot smaller, and it's getting a lot cheaper. This light over here, this is $100 that's sitting in this lamp. Those Aperture B7Cs, they're like $70 a piece, and they light well. The most expensive one, obviously the Aperture MCs, they're like I think they're like $80 a piece. Like obviously something what's lighting me right now is a no. But the point I'm trying to make is that as if they come out and what they do, what they did for the A7 III, which is they give a lot of the features that was of the A7S II, but not as good of low light at a much cheaper rate. I think a lot of people are going to flock to this one, especially if you're a Sony shooter. I'm very curious to see. I'm really curious to see if they'll put 10-bit 422. They may just do 10-bit 420, kind of like the A1, just to sort of give something to the A7S III. Because if it's full 10-bit 422, they're going to do that multi-slot of SD cards and CF Express Type A.
Yeah,
they're going to do that with this camera as well. And if it comes anywhere between like $2,500, what's the argument for the A7S III? Still a great camera, but what would be the argument for that? But it's a solid camera. The A7 III the A7 line has always been a very popular with a lot of people, just because it's a very affordable camera that packs so much punch. So,
well, what you got to remember here, and I've been covering Rumors for a couple of years now. When it comes to Sony Rumors, and this has got nothing to do with the people that put together Sony Rumors, Sony Alpha Rumors, or the other sites out there do camera, Sony does a very, very good job of not leaking stuff. So whenever I see Sony Rumors, I always take them with a grain of salt. One thing I know about Sony as a company, when they put their cameras out there, they're not the one to go ahead and put out video in a stills hybrid camera that is likely going to beat out the A7S III that much, but they are aware of the R5. They are aware of that price gap of $2,600 between the Alpha 1 and the R5. So if you take 7K oversample video and you put that in the A7 IV, that's going to get a lot of people thinking of the A7 IV over the A7S III. I mean, the A7S III does produce really good detailed video, but it would fracture the line a little bit. So I'm really curious to see what Sony's going to do and what the actual final specs are going to be. So a little bit of a grain of salt there. But John, again, you've been awfully quiet because these two have got some really great stuff to say. What do you think about the A7 IV and some of these leaked specs?
Well, you're talking about comparing it to the R5. I'm thinking of it more of a direct competitor to the R6, especially given the price point, which is going to be virtually the same. And while I'm really mainly a photographer, the video thing I'm still basically a noob, certainly compared to the rest of this panel. But if they don't put in, 10-bit 422, which the R6 shoots, that would be a big mistake on their part. I think they need to have, certainly, that quality video compared to what the other things you were talking about this. So I'm intrigued. I know the Sony shooters have been dying for this camera for like 2 years or whatever it is now, and it seems like this camera's been almost like a unicorn. It seems to be always just around the corners, just over the hills. Somebody saw a hoof print someplace, but there's a horn shedding on a lawn somewhere. But
I hate to say this, John, but
yeah.
right now UFO sightings are far more credible than A74 sightings.
The UFO sightings are certified now. We know that we don't know what they are. There's something out there. We just don't know what it is.
That's hot. I just got burned on that one.
So I mean, I'll be intrigued. I know the Sony users will definitely be very happy. But we got to really see what the reality is once it comes out. Because as you said before, Simon, Sony keeps this stuff really pretty close to the vest. So we'll see.
Yeah, and again, everyone, keep this in mind because Sony, Canon, Nikon, they look at their customers and they look at who is this camera targeted for. And the A74 is a photography camera. It's aimed at photographers. It's aimed at people that want to produce really great stills images, and it covers a whole range of people. It can do fast action up to a certain degree. It does stills. It does fashion. It does wildlife. It does many different things. There's so many lenses that can hook up to the camera. But the video stuff, I'm a little hesitant to weigh in that they're going to give us 7K. 7K oversample 4K. I do think it's going to get enhancements to autofocus. I think it's going to get bird's eye autofocus and may even be able to shoot other animals very well with the autofocus system too. So I think it's definitely going to be a much more improved camera, but I don't think they're really going to push the video capability so much more that people are going to, because it's not just going to affect the Sony a7S III, but also the FX3, which is basically the same camera in a different shell. So $2,500 US, $4,500 Australian, and £2,400.
That's a good point. And just to piggyback real quick off of you, Simon, because I just thought about it, because it's like you also got to think about the price tag where it's at and who would be aiming to go to it at. It's not saying professionals wouldn't be looking at this camera. Obviously, some professionals are definitely going to look at it. But really, it's the people who want to get into the Sony ecosystem. And do you really want to drop 7K recording? Even if it's not 7K, if it's just oversampled 7K down to 4K, do you really want to drop that much processing onto someone just coming into the Sony ecosystem?
If they're in marketing, I'm sure the answer is yes. But, the other parts of the organization.
I'm not sure this would really be an entry-level camera for people getting into the Sony system. I think it's for people who are already in the Sony system and looking for the next step up.
Yeah, I don't see it as entry either. But guys, there's more. We're not done with Sony. I want to extend that Sony conversation into some lenses. So there's more. Yeah, but wait, there's more. So along with the announcements.
Now how much would you pay?
Yeah, how much would you pay? Well, they're separately, unfortunately, but we're looking at a late October announcement, and that's when we're also supposed to be getting the FE 100mm f1.4 GM. And again, that's kind of Q4. It could even go into Q122 based on the different rumors that I've seen. But what I like about these is also you're going to be getting the Sony 28-75 f2.8, and that's going to compete against Tamron and Sigma. They're 28-75 and 28-70 FE. I did see some rumors also about a Sony 85mm coming in 2022, but I don't really like to go that far. That's more or less just wishing. So we've definitely got some new Sony lenses coming out in the next couple of months. So we're going to have an FE 100, and then we're going to have the 28-75. Brian, what do you think? Or let me just open this to everybody. Who wants to comment on these wonderful lenses that Sony's planning on bringing to market?
Well, let me just jump in. Now, let me just.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, man.
I only know about Tamron. The Tamron lenses haven't gotten really good review. The 28-75 particularly. So I'd really be interested to see what the Sony version is going to cost. compared to that. I mean, if that's a G Max, it's obviously going to be a lot more. And the question is it going to be enough better to justify whatever the additional cost is going to be? Because, like I said, the Tamron really gets rave reviews from pretty much everybody I've seen about it.
How's the sharpness towards the edges through the focal range, and in terms of chromatic aberration of the Tamron? How is it?
Well, again, not as a user, but I believe it shapes up really very well.
Because us consumers, we do funny things sometimes. I had a nice $2,000 EF 50 millimeter f1.2 lens, and I upgraded and spent another $3,400 Canadian for the RF version. And you know what? I would have been perfectly happy sticking with the older lens. And we as consumers sometimes, because there's a perceived extra sharpness, and there was, you could see it, it was measurable. If you go to Camera Labs, for example, Gordon Lang has looked at this and you can see there's a definite improvement. And I've noticed it too, but is it worth $3,400 Canadian or about $2,200 US? Well, that's really up to you, isn't it? And let me know in the comment section down below, what causes you to upgrade to a different lens? Is it the look? Is it the atmosphere? I've got some of these recently out of China. There's several companies now that are now producing affordable entry-level full-frame lenses. Liowa 35 millimeter or 0.95 is being reviewed by a lot of people. I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but I look at this lens and yeah, it's not as sharp. It falls off as you go through the focal range, and chromatic aberration is there. But go back to the 70s and the 60s when lenses had more character, and you could do everything right and still things weren't perfect. Technology today can produce things that are absolutely perfect, but there's also a sense of emotion and mood that you're trying to get. So let me know if you're looking at upgrading your lenses to something newer. Brian, do you have anything to say about these lenses?
Yeah, I love lenses. I absolutely love all kinds of lenses. I'm a believer of your camera is your tool, but your lens is your personality. So when it comes time to get into different lenses, I think that's where people should spend their money. All this talk about different camera bodies and new cameras coming out, honestly, in my opinion, that's only so that these manufacturers can keep on padding their pockets. They have to come out with something new when they need money. That's when they do it. They don't come out with new cameras every 6 months, every year. There's no specific time frame. Even Sony says this to me just the other day. They're not making cameras that don't make any margin anymore. They're not building product because it's not making them money. So what they're doing is they're coming out with the cameras that'll make them money, and that's why they bring them out. Then, of course, when they do that, they have to have new technology. They're always working on that tech, and it's always improving. So that's great. But the lens, Simon, you hit the nail on the head. There's lenses back in the 50s and 60s that are selling for 5 times more than they did a year ago today, because people are going back to film. People are going back to the feel and the look of an image.
Yeah.
And you don't need perfection. In fact, in my opinion, there's no such thing as perfect. You can spend all the money in the world and not have a clue how to use this stuff and make. Hey, I sell this stuff for a living, and I have a lot of customers that spend a lot of money, and I never see a single photo from them. I mean, that tells you a lot about the buyers, especially for the Sony line. There's people that'll just buy it because it's Sony. I have no problem with that. It's a cult of personality. They love it. They want to buy it. Please, thank you. I need to pay my mortgage. But that being said, there are so many amazing cameras out there that aren't being talked about that, if you used correctly, can do amazing things. I mean, I've got a 1928 camera right here that if I went out and tried to make really good photos with it, it can make really good photos. And we're developing that film again. So, I mean, you and I have had the conversation about Rumors, and I am honored to be here to talk with these things. And I love the conversation, and I really love your guests. I think these guys are awesome. But when we start talking about the latest and greatest, all I can think is cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And I don't know, man. I'm old school. I like to use things that work, not things that just cost money.
You know what, Brian? I want to back end that conversation because I agree. And they shouldn't stay on the shelf. They should be on your lens. And I'll say this because I haven't made any I don't have buyer's remorse. And yes, I spent a lot of money on this 50 millimeter, but I'm running a channel, so it's expensed and it's taken care of that way. But one thing I always try to do, if you ever find yourself, you're like, I shouldn't have bought that, or you get buyer's remorse, I'm going to give you a tip that's going to really, really help you out. When you're looking at a new camera, don't look at the specs first. Ask yourself what capabilities, what outcomes, what results do you not like about your current gear that you want to see in future gear. So it's kind of, you're looking at the current state that you have, and you're looking at the future of what you want. And then you compare it to the cameras that are out there that are in your price bracket that you're looking at, and purchase based on capabilities, not specs. And you're going to find yourself a lot happier with your decisions. So while I spent $3,400 Canadian on the 50 millimeter, when it came to the super telephoto, I spent around $900 US, and I got the 800 millimeter, because, while I could have justified it with a channel, dropping about $12,000 on a super telephoto lens that I'm going to use a couple of times a year, I just think, if I do that, Brian, I expect you to hit me over the head with it. It's built tough. It can take it, and I need some sense knocked into me.
Well, here's another thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was
John.
about to say, there's a saying, of course, that I'm sure you've all heard about. Date the body and marry the lens. I mean, that's the way. Yeah. That's the way I look at it too. And pretty much, since I'm not a professional, I'm basically I'm a hobbyist, and I've basically have upgraded my kit over the years with whatever extra money I've been able to put away and save or whatever. Or in one case, I guess I bought some stuff as a retirement present for myself after I left my job. So I had some fun set away as play money. That's what I bought some stuff with. But basically, every purchase that I've made has been based on what problem do I have photographically now that this new kit will solve, and if it doesn't solve that, then why am I buying it?
Exactly.
So that's pretty much the way and that way you avoid a lot of remorse. I mean, as some time goes by, and maybe. As you get used to a particular lens or a particular body, that you realize that you've, because of experience or new training or learning how to process things like that, you've been able to now realize images or realize the type of video, whatever that you can conceptualize, but you can't execute with what you have. And that's, again, when you start looking to something better. But I'm not gonna buy just a shiny new toy just because it's a shiny new toy. Right. I can't afford that. So that's the way I look.
There are a lot of people that can, and that's,
well, God bless them. I'm not one of them.
God bless them. Good for the economy. I do want to say though, the work-related comment, Nick Can says for him it's work-related. You buy it for what you need for work, and I know the native mount lenses are super important. For example, I'm obviously a Nikon shooter. I love the standard DSLR F mount, but the Z mount is huge. It's much bigger, and there's no vignetting. You get sharpness on even their kit lenses, edge to edge. You can shoot at any aperture. You don't need to shoot 2 stops over max to get that better sharpness like you would on the F mount and all that kind of stuff. So that whole concept of the new lens, the new bodies with the new mount, getting new lenses with that updated mount, in my opinion, is absolutely worth it. You're getting the native, you're getting faster focusing, you're getting better sharpness edge to edge. So that is where I would say spend the money.
Right.
If you do buy yourself a new body, get the native mount.
If you like this video, well, stay tuned. I've got more of them coming. But keep in mind, this is a pre-recorded segment from my weekly camera news live show, which is every Friday between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if you like covering the news and if you would like to collaborate, well, then join me live Friday nights where you can ask questions and interact with the panelists. And panelists cover a range of the camera industry. We have photo experts and video experts. We have camera news or industry insiders. And once in a while, I have some guests from other channels such as Jordan Drake or Dan Watson. But again, thank you so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Please don't forget to punch that like and subscribe button, as it really does help my channel grow. We'll see you again soon.